So today's session is the third session in a series that we are running. The series is organized as part of the engagement activities within the DIAMAS project, and it's designed and managed by AFL and Spark Europe. We plan to organize more sessions until the end of the project. This is a kind of an informal engagement space, and you will see that the conversations are usually quite interesting and quite engaging. And we welcome feedback. We usually present some of the resources created in the project, and we usually welcome feedback from the participants. And we are really delighted with the feedback we receive. For those who are here for the first time, DIAMAS is a project funded by the European Commission. It started in 2022 and will end on the 31st of August this year. And we are now in the most interesting part of this project, the most interesting for you, because this is a period when we are actually releasing the resources we've been working on for the past years. It has a budget of 3 million, and it has 23 public service scholarly organizations from 12 countries as participants in the project. And some of these organizations are international organizations that cover wide and the communities. The objectives of the project are focused on creating a new aligned, sustainable scholarly communication ecosystem. And in order to achieve this, we are creating the community, we are creating supporting services, and the project has a kind of a non-technical focus. It has a sister project, Craft OA, which is more technical and which deals with the infrastructure to a greater degree. We are focusing on common standards, guidelines, and best practices. During one of the previous sessions, we presented the standard, and we will deal more with the Diamond open access standard for publishing. The next session will be dedicated to it again, and today we will deal with guidelines that are now available on the website. So we will hear in the first presentation, you will hear more about this. This is a kind of a block of resources that are now ready, prepared, and they are published. And there will be other components of this big portal that you will hear more about in the following months. So now we will talk today about Toolsuite guidelines and a suite of resources for publishers. And Toolsuite and guidelines are also multilingual, and you will hear more about the process of translating them and making them available to a wider community. So this is in brief the agenda of today's session. So we will have, after the presentations, they're quite short, we will have a Q&A session. There are questions. We have the chat, but we would prefer you to use the Q&A option for your questions, and you can also comment there. And then after that, we will go into breakouts. We'll have brief reports from the breakouts and some closing remarks and the announcement of the next session. The presentations will be shared, so these are the resources, and I will share the presentation so that you have access to resources. And now I invite my colleague Iraklitos to start with his presentation. I won't be introducing the presenters. I'll let them introduce themselves. So, Iraklitos.
Thank you, Milica. So I'd like to welcome you all to this session. My name is Iraklitos Sigilzoglou. I am an Open Science Project Officer at Operas and a member of the team that coordinates the development of the Toolsuite along with other components that the DIAMAS project is currently designing. So this will be a short introduction to the DIAMAS Toolsuite, an online platform that hosts resources and guidelines to support Diamond Open Access, and more particularly the Diamond Open Access standard. I will start with a short overview of the development process, and my colleagues Sona Raste and Anna Hughes will present in more detail the resources that are already published on the Toolsuite. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Um, Before I present the development of the toolsheet in detail, I would like to give an overview of the wider context, as the toolsheet is one of the components of a wider online infrastructure, a wider digital infrastructure, namely the European Diamond Capacity Hub, or the EDCH as we usually refer to it. So one of the main objective of the DIAMAS project is to set the foundations for the EDCH, which was officially publicly launched in Madrid last week, and is currently being developed as a digital infrastructure supported by a collective of organizations across Europe that endorse and apply Diamond Open Access practices or provide services to Diamond publishers. So, in brief, the scope of the Diamond Capacity Hub is to help the community of Diamond Open Access publishers and service providers with tools, guidelines, as well as workflows for the exchange of information, alignment of practices, and streamlining of their operations. DIAMAS is contributing to the EDCH with resources, the development of the online components that will host the project outputs, and also by designing a framework that will ensure the long-term sustainability of the hub. This framework is based on the setting up of 6 task forces, with each being responsible for one or more of the core services that the hub will eventually offer to the community. If we can go to the next slide, please. So briefly, the conceptual framework that underlies the development of the services and the resources is DOAS, the Diamond Open Access Standard, which is developed by DIAMAS. Accordingly, the main services of the Capacity Hub that you can see in this image here relate to the alignment with the DOAS through self-assessment and the provision of resources such as training materials and guidelines hosted by an interactive training platform, and the toolsheet, of course, that I will present in a minute. In addition to that, the European Diamond Capacity Hub will also offer community and management tools, more specifically a registry of organizations involved in Diamond Open Access and a forum that will support interaction and knowledge exchange among them. Additionally, the hub will also host the Diamond Discovery Hub, which is currently being developed as an authoritative list of Diamond Open Access journals, and will support the community of publishers and providers with interoperability tools and enhancements as well. If we can go to the next slide. What is the toolsheet? As we will see here in the slide, it is essentially a set of resources published on an online installation with an aim to support Diamond Open Access, and specifically the implementation of the Diamond Open Access standard. So the installation hosts a collection of high-level articles and in-depth guidelines that have been drafted and organized on the basis of the 7 core components of DOAS that you can see on the slide. And it covers a spectrum of operational and editorial subjects, including funding and governance, open science and editorial quality, and of course more focused topics such as the efficiency of technical services, issues of equity, diversity, and belonging, and so on. You can see the link to the Toolsuite website, which is already shared in the chat as well, so you're all invited to visit and provide your feedback. If we can go to the next slide. So before presenting the development of the resources and the website, I would like to highlight that is the outcome of a collective effort, and thank the team involved in the process, which was a group of more than 20 colleagues who contributed to the drafting and reviewing and editing and publishing the resources online, whether as authors, editors, or internal and external reviewers. The first iteration of the toolsuite included the outputs of two tasks of the DIAMAS project, with a great team of authors contributing to the writing of the resources under the coordination of Clara Armengu, our colleague from DOADS, who supervised the development of the guidelines, and Graham Stone from JISC, who acted as editor-in-chief and also provided the organizational structure and the informational text that will supplement the resources. I will now elaborate a bit more on the methodology and the writing process. So this and the next slide present our methodological approach and the steps followed during the implementation. So practically, the development of the toolsuite began in 2023, in parallel to the writing of the extensive quality standards for institutional publishing, EXIP in short, which was the predecessor of DOA, so the Diamond Open Access Standard. So at this initial stage, we decided to use the 7 core components of the standard and then map both the high-level articles and the guidelines to these, as Sona will explain in a while. During this preparatory phase, and to avoid duplications and overlaps, we also consulted other toolkits, such as the Open Access Journal toolkit that DOADS and OASPA published recently, and the OAPEN Open Access Books toolkit. We agreed to adopt the structure of the OAPEN toolkit upon permission, of course. So, in alignment with the structure of the OAPEN resources, the toolsuite consists mainly of a collection of articles of around 500 words each, that provide high-level guidance on the DOAS components, a set of guidelines with more practical recommendations and tips about the implementation of the DOAS. And there's also a number of shorter articles around the purpose of the toolsuite or how to use it. Of course, acknowledgements and 2 articles specifically focusing as and serving as introductions to Diamond Open Access and to the DOAS respectively, which, as I mentioned, is the conceptual framework that underlies the development of the resources. One of the main challenges that we faced related to the wide coverage of DOAS, which practically refers to a range of operational and quality criteria. So it was practically quite difficult to provide sufficient documentation that covers sufficiently the whole spectrum of the DOAS elements. To address that, as part of the preparatory tasks, we asked the consortium to do some desk research and identify resources, that is guidelines, best practices documents, training materials, toolkits, and other documentation that we could then reuse or reference to in the toolsuite as further reading items. We also encourage the community to contribute to that effort and launched a call to gather additional resources, which actually complemented the materials already identified by the project partners. So, as a result, we compiled a catalog of more than 200 resources in 11 different languages, which will be shared with the community for future and before the end of the project. Once this first stage was completed, we assigned lead authors, co-authors, and or writing teams to each of the resources. Um, Let me clarify at this point that by resources, I refer both to the high-level articles and the guidelines that Sona will present in more detail. So those lead authors were responsible for communication within the teams and the task leaders. In most cases, the lead authors had already contributed to the writing of the corresponding element of DOA, so they were already familiar with the topic in question. The writing teams were given a template and common structure, which included an introduction, the main text, a section with reference and further reading, as well as glossary terms and keywords, links to other training materials and articles that DIAMAS is currently developing, and were also requested to split some of the core DOAS elements into more than one section in the toolsuite in cases where this was needed. Can we go to the next slide, please, Sona? So this effort resulted in 15 main articles and 18 guidelines. All of these resources are grouped according to their relevance to the DOAS elements. They're tagged with keywords to help users who seek information on a specific topic and interlinked, as I already explained. Going back to the implementation, as the timeline was quite short, we had to set tight deadlines for the first drafts to be ready, which of course put additional pressure on the authors, but ensured that we would meet the deadlines, as the Toolsuite was a project deliverable and we had quite a few teams working in parallel. The first drafts of the resources were circulated within the consortium and reviewed by partners, which helped us identify duplications or internal links between the articles. They were then merged into a single document, which also included the supplementary resources, such as the glossary, the FAQs, and was then shared with an editorial board of experts for final review. These experts were identified during the community call for the collection of reference materials. And as we also asked respondents whether they would be interested in becoming members of the board. So after this round of external peer review, the writing teams made the suggested edits and added a number of new references and further reading items. Once the articles were signed off by the writing teams, they of course underwent extensive copy edit in order to adopt a common terminology, a common referencing style, and overall tone, and were forwarded to the translation teams who did a very efficient job of in translating all the resources and the user interface into Spanish, Portuguese, and Croatian, as Eva will explain in a while. A few concluding remarks before I hand over to Sona, and there should be an additional bullet point in the slide as well. So thank you, Sona. So first, it was agreed that all project-generated content would be made available with a CC BY license. This was decided in an early stage by all authors, allowing this way for the whole toolsuite to be reused, updated, and translated as required, either by the project or externally. So as this is meant to be a resource for the community, please reuse, adapt, translate, and update the articles, and share your versions with the project team. There will be future iterations, and any addition to the existing articles or supplementary resources is more than welcome. As a second remark along the same lines, the toolsuite is hosted on a Drupal installation. Drupal was selected not only because it efficiently supports online content management workflows, but also as an open source platform that, combined with the openly licensed content, can be shared with the community, with you, as a blueprint that can be replicated by other initiatives. So if your library considers developing a help desk or a suite of resources to support your institution's publishing activities, you can refer to the Toolsuite as a hopefully successful use case. We've also uploaded a report on Zenodo that describes our methodology and the development process, and we'll be happy to discuss any questions or suggestions for improvement that you may have. And with that, I will give the floor to Sona, who will present the structure and the content in more detail.
Thank you very much. So thank you, Iraklitos, for doing the heavy methodological lifting before handing over to me. So my name is, Okay, so my name is Sona Araste. I'm also an open science project officer on behalf of Operas, working on the DIAMAS project. And in this very capacity, I take over from Iraklitos right now. So I have the more hands-on part of this presentation. So I basically show you how it looks like on the website. So you can see that on the right side of the screen a bit as well. And just in terms of the overall conceptual structure of the tool suite. So as Iraklitos and Milica also mentioned in their introductions, the tool suite serves as an introduction to Diamond OA in general, and more specifically to the Diamond Open Access standard. Apologies. The articles serve as some kind of high-level descriptions of what the Diamond Open Access standard is supposed to describe and set standards for, and set signposts to relevant resources. So it's basically a very pragmatic resource that you can use. Apologies, 1 second. And in terms of implementing your standards, the guidelines that Iraklitos just has mentioned serve as really a practical guidance into how-to that describes the workflows necessary for implementation. A sustainability resource, my colleague Anna will present in a second, basically encompass tools, case studies, and templates to support sustainability. So basically, you are well taken care of in terms of how to reach sustainability. The FAQ section features really common questions about the Diamond Open Access standard and its implementation. So it's basically just a complementary to the functions the tool suite has in itself. The glossary also is a supportive function that features very short, very concise definitions of terms and concepts used, just to be on the clear side of everything. And it also features, so every article features useful links that basically, as Iraklitos just mentioned, refer to other toolkits that have been consulted or that are needed to reference here because they basically serve as a complementary action. The self-assessment tool, which is a tool that you can use to self-assess your compliance with the Diamond Open Access standard and check your financial sustainability. And very soon, there will also be training resources implemented that help reach the skills needed to implement the standards. And this, I will not go into too much detail with this slide, because as you can see, it's very text heavy. But this is just an overview in terms of how it is structured. So basically it features the components of the DOAs that were presented earlier, and how that connects to the actual articles that are on the tool suite. So we have revenue streams and Diamond Open Access policies, which are obviously connected to the funding part of things. We have, in terms of editorial quality, management, and research integrity, I'm just picking out the cherries here, to be honest, something like basic editorial information that should be displayed, GDPR and personal data. So as you can see, these articles basically spread out information about the DOAs to make it digestible. And that's really the beauty of it, that you can use it as a hands-on guide for something that is to be reached for that is within reach for everyone. And this is just an example of an article, so you can actually see how it looks like, even though you can also obviously see it on the website that was shared in the chat. But to give you a bit of visuals on that, so you can see this is the article Ownership and Governance. Then we have an abstract that basically very briefly describes what is being done in this very article. On the right side, you can see the text. So you have a bit of context here where this is situated within the overall scheme of the tool suite. Then you have the main text. You can see there is a section that mentions related tool suite articles. So you can basically, if you want more information about a specific topic that is connected, you can just click there and be forwarded right away. We also have a section with related guidelines and training materials. So basically, this is the whole contextualization with other toolkits that, and training materials that have been consulted / created for this, and references. For example, the information uploaded onto Zenodo by the DIAMAS project. It also features a section that is called Further Reading, which I think Iraklitos also mentioned earlier. So basically, you are well taken care of by all of these sections. You have all the information ready at your fingertips, and you can really dive deeply into the topic. And now I have the pleasure of not presenting the slide, but rather hand to my colleague Anna, who leads the efforts in terms of the sustainability resources for the tool suite. And Anna, do you want me to stop sharing my screen so you can share yours? Or do you want to go with the slide first?
No, I don't think so. I'll just pop the link to
what
I'll be talking about in here, and then people can just click on it themselves and follow what I'm doing. But yeah, hi. I recognise some people on the call, but to those who don't know me, I'm Anna Hughes. I'm a communication and engagement manager. I'm based at JISC in the UK. So JISC is the UK's digital data and technology agency, which focuses on tertiary education, research and innovation. And we're one of the partner organisations in DIAMAS, and we've led on the development of a number of the project outputs. And specifically, I'm leading on this collection of sustainability resources, which sits on the EDCH with the tool suites and articles just mentioned earlier on. So the aim of this collection is to support publishers and service providers in assessing to what extent they're financially sustainable, and really sort of provide them with the tools and intelligence to help them become more so in the future. So it's also aimed to support those who fund research outputs. So this can include IPSPs, but it can also include like governments, research performing organisations and charities. So it's been a collaborative, as with everything on the DIAMAS project, it's been a collaborative effort creating these resources. So lots of different partners have been involved, Spark Europe, EIFL, obviously JISC, OASPA, there's more, and I apologise to those that I haven't mentioned. So what we wanted to do with this collection of resources was really create like a sort of diverse collection to support conversations between the stakeholder groups that I've mentioned, and get them to continue to support Diamond or start supporting Diamond, and give them the arguments they would need for that. So what do these stakeholder groups need to know in order to have conversations? What can help them on their journey to be more sustainable? So to create these new resources, we drew heavily upon desk-based research from earlier in the project. So work was done by another work package to establish, the key actors, what are the issues, what are the challenges they face. We've also looked at existing research outputs from earlier in the project, so project reports, data sets, surveys, etc., to really drill down and see like what we could pull out of there. What is of interest to IPSPs and funders, sponsors and donors. Have we got any information that matches an identified need? And also, there's no point in reinventing the wheel. Are there any resources out there that could be adapted? So like I say, earlier outputs from the project were really, really useful. You might have seen the reports into the national overviews around institutional publishing across Europe, and there's another report that dives deeply into the sustainability of institutional publishing across Europe. So there's some really, really interesting stuff in there. And this research allowed us to sort of understand the problems and issues, and really helped us devise, pull that out from these lengthy reports, and devise resources that can be used by IPSBs. We basically wanted to really take, the quite lengthy reports, the really detailed reports, and make the information more available in a manageable and user-friendly way. So if you follow the link that I put in the chat, you can see the resources online on the EDCH website. There are more coming. So the initial ones on there, we got live to coincide with the launch in Madrid last week. So not only are there new resources, we also signpost to the project reports that I've just mentioned. We also signpost to the financial sustainability checker tool, as well as other resources that may be useful. They're all hosted on Zenodo. They're available to download. Please, obviously, use and share. I think Heraclitus mentioned earlier the final structure isn't defined yet. It's not finalized. So we are planning to have a play around with the structure, keywords, etc., and obviously add more resources. So this will either be new resources or further reading. So if you've got any feedback, any ideas for new resources, if you feel there's a gap there's something missing that would really help you in your conversations, then obviously please get in touch. The email address is on the bottom of the webpage. And just to clarify as well, these resources are only available in English at the moment because translating them into other languages is not part of the deliverable. However, we are looking to translate these resources, so we'll be looking to the community to share their expertise. So yeah, get in touch basically. And I'm just going to pop another link in the chat, which there we go. So that signposts to a news item that's just gone live on the DIAMAS website today, and it just pulls together all the resources in a nice web page that you can share with colleagues. But yeah, the main message, go and try out the resources, and give us your feedback. We really want to hear from you.
I suppose it's me again.
It is. Yeah. Sorry, I've done my little bit, and now it's back to you.
No worries. Thank you, Anna. Okay, so basically I'm just wrapping this up, which is good because I think then we're kind of in time. So basically there are three main takeaways you can just take away from this part of the presentation. The first is the conceptual core of the Toolsuite is the Diamond Open Access Standard. So what the Toolsuite really is aiming to do is to help you move around these conceptual components, which are simultaneously the conceptual core components of the European Diamond Capacity Hub. So basically, it is kind of a holistic approach to this. Secondly, there will be, and there is, with this webinar being one of them, a series of webinars to collect feedback on the Toolsuite and other components of the European Diamond Capacity Hub. So as Anna just mentioned, and Heraclitus also did, please, if you have any feedback, do let us know. We really want to work with you and produce something that is valuable to you. So we need your input, we need your feedback, and we need your collaboration for this. And lastly, Heraclitus has also mentioned it, but I will put a spotlight on it, so to speak. So if you are really enthusiastic about translating parts or maybe even the whole Toolsuite, we would love that. Because of course the idea is that we will not only have the Toolsuite in 4 languages, but actually to have it in as many languages as we can to cater to the needs of all national communities. So if you are interested in that or want to collaborate with us on this, please do let us know and drop us a message. And I think with that, I am at the end of our presentation. And the last thing that I would like to say is to say thank you to the audience, and thank you to Milica and Irina who are organizing this webinar. And with that, I will now mute myself.
Thank you, Heraclitus, Sona, and Anna. And now we will hear more from our colleague Eva about the process of translating, which was a really interesting process. And I will share a link where you can read also more about it. Over to you, Eva.
Hello. Thank all of you for already introducing this topic. So I will speak shortly about our experience with translating the Toolsuite articles and guidelines. So I work at the University of Zagreb Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences in the library, and we are one of the partners. So luckily there were two partners from Croatia, so it made the translation job a little bit easier for us. But I will try to, in this ending brief presentation, try to somehow explain what we did, and then try to persuade you to do the same, but also give you some overviews of challenges and expectations. So it's not that the process wasn't always easy and straightforward. So these are the things that you should bear in mind if you decide to try it out yourself. So I'll speak about the tools and the process, and then speak about reasons for translation, and then challenges that you have to have in mind. Sorry, okay, sorry. This wasn't. So the tool that we used is called Mondecus, and this is something that we would like to support and advise you also to use this kind of tool. It is actually the tool developed by Opera's infrastructure, and Opera's is one of the members of the project consortium. So it was very logical for us to use the tool that is free, and then that we provide feedback for the tool to the developers so they can actually try get the information on how to use it in this kind of environment. So Mondecus is free to use. You have a link in maybe we can put it in the chat, but also you will have the presentation later. And it is designed to support collaborative translating, so multiple people can work on the same platform and work on the same text, put comments, edit text together. So this was something that was important, as for instance, and on the Croatian translation, there were more than 10 people working together. You have functionalities of importing documents, collaborating, commenting, and then what is also important, exporting it in various formats. And also what was very important is that you have an inbuilt function of using the AI translation within the tool. So that was a very handy and very useful, but of course it's not something that is finished, and you always have to judge and evaluate the translation that you get using the AI. We had some within so that in the time that we were using this tool, it was rather early. We gave some feedback, and luckily most of the functionalities that we needed, or some elements of the system that we were not very satisfied with, they were amended, and so the tool was considerably enhanced during that time. So we are now rather confident in promoting it and advising others to use it. At some point, we also used, I don't know, Google Translate or ChatGPT, or for many languages you can use, not for Croatian. Unfortunately, there isn't a DeepL. Croatian is not one of the languages supported by DeepL, but those are all tools that you can use to supplement or to just use solely them for translating. But then in the end, it is really very important for people, humans, to control, to edit translations. We were also lucky to have on the team on the project team to have a professor of information sciences. So she was already experienced in editing, I don't know, student works in this, particularly in this professional domain. So her input was very, very useful in final redacting of the text. And then I can briefly show you what so this is the Mondecus and how it looks. You see the text in original language in every paragraph. Then you have translation in your target language. You have the place to put comments. And then finally, you can export everything that you translate in the Mondecus. And finally, what are the reasons for translating it? Why we did that, and why should you? So in the project, it was very clear when you deal with diamond publishing that multilingualism is something of great importance. And we wanted to not just state that, but also do what we preach. So we felt that it's valuable to translate it, but it's not just the idea of the value of the multilingualism, but also being aware that by translating everything that we have, we will simply make the Toolsuite articles and guidelines accessible to much wider audiences. And this is something that was important for us. But what you need to think of is also finding a balance between the efforts that are required and the benefits that are gained. So for each community, you can judge whether, for instance, we know that in some countries, English is so widely used and understood that maybe the effort of translating is not really necessary to undertake. So this is something that each of your communities will have to decide on your own. And what is also something that Sona already mentioned is that there is a possibility of this gradual approach. What we did is translating the whole set of Toolsuite articles and guidelines, but also some site navigation elements. So this was quite resource demanding. So we needed to it needed multiple people and some time, but you can also choose to translate or even adapt. So it was mentioned that this is all under CC BY. So you can take pieces, adapt them, and use them in your own context. So put them on your own websites or do whatever you like with the content that you have. And something about the challenges that we met in the translation process. So something that was really important is we translated multiple elements of the text, and many people translated them. So it was very important to use consistent terminology across this multiple text. So it was important that finally one or two persons go through everything that was translated and check for this consistency. But also there were some challenges related to the translation itself, especially when translating to a language like Croatian, which doesn't have a lot of speakers. So we had, for some of the concept that we used, we don't have established terms in our language. Sometimes it's even for some very simple terms. For instance, in this scholarly communication domain, like corresponding authors on an article or a landing page, or sometimes some phrases that are used in spoken language, like a quick win or something. So you will not have a simple and adequate and established term in Croatian for this. And it will probably be similar with other so-called small languages. I mean, languages with smaller audiences. It's also sometimes a problem when you are trying to translate terms related to open science that are new and emerging and maybe not yet known to many people so speakers of this language, such as, for instance, read and publish agreements. So we don't have a established term for that. And then there is also some terminology that we actually, in our language, we basically use commonly English terms. So translating them brings even more unclarity than it brings some clarity. So then we would decide to use the English term even in the translation, for instance, for hosting or for sitemaps or things like that. Then there is a challenge with translating complex concepts. For instance, we had quite a discussion about how to translate community-led governance, and we are still not happy with how we did that in Croatian, and there is no easy way to translate this kind of complex terms. And then the use of abbreviations. Also, there's a need for consistency, and also there are there are abbreviations that are commonly used in English, but not so commonly in other languages, like using just OS for open science or OA for open access. So we decided in translating that to use full terms and not to use abbreviations. So those are some of the things that you have to think. And then if you decide, we will be very lucky to have your content together with already existing translations. So I hope that I wasn't discouraging you from translating things. Thank you.
No, I wouldn't say so. Actually, Eva indicated a very interesting path for all of you using small languages or languages that are not really similar to English. You need to be creative, and that's what we actually are trying to encourage. That there is a free open license, and you can remodel the resources in the way that is suitable for your communities, as long as the main idea is there. What we also cherished was the modular approach. So if we need to expand those resources in the future, this will be easy to do. We can just add additional elements, and also it's suitable for those translating and adjusting those resources, because you can also choose particular elements, particular modules, and you can also expand them in your language or just make them shorter in your language if you wish. So Irina, over to you with breakout one.
Thank you. We had a very interesting conversation about funded streams for supporting Diamond, and Patrick has kindly shared a Diamond Open Access Fund that his university set up for supporting Diamond journals. Also shared that Diamond Open Access journals are setting up an association in Switzerland and discussing what is the role of libraries in that association. Also to Eva, Patrick has kindly volunteered to translate into French your resource that you are creating, overview of revenue and funded streams. And we were thinking that maybe if there is a use case to translate that new resource into French, maybe we can think about describing a workflow, like what is a workflow if a resource needs to be created by volunteers like Patrick, whether the DIAMAS team will upload English version on Mondecus, provide access to Patrick, or how exactly that would work. So I just wanted to flag that probably we'll connect Patrick and Eva and the rest of the team to discuss how that could be done, and we can use it as a use case for other translations. And also we agreed that it would be useful to create that resource, which is listed as additional question, how Diamond Open Access journals could make use cases to and value propositions, show value propositions to libraries, and maybe additional resource listing examples how universities are supporting Diamond, as Patrick's university is doing. Thank you.
Great, thanks a lot. So let's go to room 2. That was Sona.
Yeah, we had so I think there was a general consent that the tool suite and the guidelines are actually quite helpful. But what was interesting is that the questions that the participants of the breakout rooms, and by them I mean the other 3 that are not me, had mainly revolved around how they could potentially implement those guidelines to meet not only the Diamond Open Access Standard, but more of a general framework of standards for open access publishing. And I think in turn, this poses a very interesting question, because it poses the question of how the compliance of DOAs with other standards is being pointed out. How the compliance of the implementation of standards with other implementation of standards is pointed out. So this might be something worthwhile thinking about. Another question that was posed is, so if all these things are implemented, so if the guidelines and the resources are followed, because they weren't, so we didn't go into too much depth of what the gaps in the resources and guidelines were, but rather talked about what happens now after implementation. So there was the question of how to certify that. So that is quite interesting if we can come up with a way to show that journals or publishers have followed these steps and guidelines and show that accordingly. So I actually think these are the 2 main outputs, I would say, out of the discussion, and it would be quite interesting to follow up on that chain of thought, because it does give quite a few ideas on how to proceed from what we have already done.
Thanks a lot. This is really interesting. So let's go to room 3, and I will say something in the conclusion about this. So room 3 was Eva.
Yes. And I can actually continue on Sona's line of thought, because in our breakout room, that was also something similar came out. So related to the role of the libraries, not just in supporting the publisher or editor of a journal, of a Diamond journal, but also the role of libraries in supporting authors who are choosing a publication venue, or supporting library operations like setting deals with publishers, or choosing publishers they will support. So again, the issue of signaling trust of quality, trust and signaling quality journals came up as something important. So what we had as an example, one of the example of useful tool is a tool that actually lists free or diamond journals where authors can publish. So that was something that came up as, and also recognizing which journals are trustworthy and which are possibly fraudulent. That came up as something important. And the other thing, so we also had another very interesting example of a sort of a guideline and a tool from French community that we could look and see, but which is rather similar to ours. And then among the topics that were recognized and tools that were recognized as most important or most relevant at the moment, one is related to accessibility, especially with accessibility of images in published content, and also with different EDIB practices. And the other tool that was mentioned as very useful is the self-assessment tool. So that's mostly from our side.
Thanks a lot. And Anna, the 4th breakout.
Lost the notes now. There we go. So we had representatives from institutions in Germany and Austria, and they both had sort of different. They both had different roles, so that was quite interesting. So one was more about they're a journal. They're only a service provider at the moment, so their support offering is more about sort of maintaining the presence of already established journals. I thought what was quite interesting was we talked about the influence of funder mandates, and how this will probably make the push, make them, will help the move to Diamond as more and more, as the issue of compliance with funder mandates becomes stronger. So that was quite interesting. We kind of felt we bombarded them with a lot of information, and obviously they hadn't had a chance to go away and distill or have a really good read of the toolkit and the guidelines. So on the surface level, they felt that it looked really, really useful and is something they could use with their they could take those away and use them, maybe adapt and share. So that's really positive. But we just really wanted to stress we had a conversation around how we really, really want, the communities to get involved, especially around translation and share any feedback and how and this will help sort of shape the resources going forward. So we tried to sign them up to translate the resources into German, but they didn't bite. But still hopeful.
It's rather early. Thank you very much.
I know, yeah.
Thank you very much. So we will follow up on this topic. So the next session will be dedicated to Diamond Open Access Standard again, but this will be about a follow-up session about potential use cases. There are some in the pipeline, and we will also try to discuss further about potential use cases, and we will go back to the notes and invite some of the people who participated in the Doha session. So we can do the same with the Toolsuite. All the more there will be more resources, and you will need to be updated on the additional resources, because we've mentioned EDIB. There will be more resources about EDIB. There will be training materials. So we will follow up on this topic again, and we will invite all of you to say what you think after you have had a detailed look at those resources and perhaps made some decisions. So thank you very much. We would like to keep in touch with you. So feel free to contact us. You have all of our emails. You have the project email. Quite soon we will have a forum for discussion. So you will be able to join the forum, and then we can continue the discussion there in a different environment that is more interactive. So we will try to organize a kind of monthly sessions as we progress towards the end of the project, and even after the end of the project, we will have a community so we can organize additional actions. So feel free to share any thoughts, any ideas, any inspirational ideas with us. And thank you very much for participating. I believe that this was interesting. The recording will be made available to those who couldn't manage. And that's all from us for today. Thanks a lot.